Hello. Oh, we're live. How's everybody doing? My name is Jovan Page, a member of the Young Alumni Council. I'm so happy to have you guys here. Please excuse me not knowing I was live. I'm still getting used to this virtual space. But that's the reason why we're doing this in the first place, so we can continue to find different ways and different avenues to reach more people. So we're super glad that you guys are here on behalf of the Young Alumni Council. I wanted to give you a little bit of information about who we are as an organization, and hopefully that means that you'll come back, you'll join us for more events, and hopefully you'll join us as members one day. So we actually have the foundation and the pillars of community service, mentorship, networking, professional development, and ambassadorship. Essentially, what we do is once a month, we do something called the Best of Blue series. And essentially, what we want to do is expose our alumni to some great people who also graduated from Georgia State University in different industries for a variety of different types of topics. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about meditation. All right. Now, when we're talking about meditation, I want you guys to have an open mind, to think about the things that maybe you have heard before, to debunk some of those things, but also to figure out different ways that we can actually do those practices as well. Okay, so I'm bringing up a wonderful individual. Her name is Rachel Abraham. She's also a member of the Young Alumni Council. And I'm super excited that she's going to be joining us here because she's going to give us some information regarding meditation. And maybe at the conclusion, you guys will be able to try some meditation yourself. So without further ado, I want to introduce Rachel Abraham.
Hey, Javon.
Wow. Okay, so this is gonna sound like he's never been nowhere. That was really cool how that just happened, how you swiveled in there. So I appreciate you being here. We got some people behind the scenes. I want to shout out Chauncey because she's doing whatever she's doing behind the scenes, because that was kind of cool how the screen flipped in. But anyway, Rachel, what's going on? I just want you really quickly to introduce yourself, and then we'll get right into it.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Rachel Abraham. I graduated from the MBA program at Robinson School of Business, and I currently work as a workplace culture consultant, but I also teach yoga and meditation. So I want to say maybe 5 years ago or so, I was introduced to meditation by way of an 8-week course, honestly. I was experiencing a lot of anxiety with my job and was dealing with a lot of chronic pain just as a former athlete. And the 8-week course in mindfulness-based stress reduction really changed my life. And so since then, I've developed a practice and have pursued really sharing it with other people. So I'm super, super grateful for this platform and just for the opportunity to share a little bit more about my experience. And as you mentioned, kind of demystifying what meditation is and how it can be applied in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it wonderfully. And that kind of brings me to my first question. I think one of the myths behind meditation is that you have to be in a space of nothingness. I know I've tried it before, and it's been really hard for me to get into a space of real relaxation. So, what exactly is that process of meditation? And when they talk about like completely ridding your mind of any thoughts or focusing on one thing, how can that be difficult as a young professional? And what ways did you kind of get better at that?
That's an awesome question. And there's so many little pieces that I want to touch on. First of all, like everybody, my friends, my family, people I meet, anytime they hear that I have a meditation practice, they're like, I wish I could meditate, but I can't because I just have so much going. Like I can't clear my mind. I have so much going on in my mind. And I'm like, bro, me too. Like,
Right.
why do you think I even do this? And so that's one thing, is that it's not about having a clear mind or not thinking of anything, right? So people will often tell me that like, oh, I can't focus on one thing, or like I have so many thoughts. I notice that I'm thinking of, that really embarrassing thing in middle school I once did. And I'm like, that's part of the practice. So you don't have to have a clear head. And another thing about meditation is it's not always going to be relaxing either. So it's really fundamentally, it's just training your attention. That's what meditation is. I like to relate it to it's like any workout, right? So if you go to the gym and it's your your first time, right? You're not going to just like bench press 200 pounds. I don't know, maybe you will, but,
I will.
and so, see, that's why I'm
Come
like,
on
maybe
now.
you would. But no, for, just to like make this like metaphor, like real, like meditation is really training your mind, just as bench presses are training your body, right? And so, but to kind of backtrack a little bit, meditation can take on so many different forms, and different practices are rooted in a number of different faith traditions, spirituality, right? Like there's contemplative prayer in Christianity, and then all the way down to like, Zen with Buddhism. So there's so many different forms of meditation, and it can be really directed or non-directed, in the sense of you are focusing your attention. If it's directed, you're focusing your attention on a certain thing or object. Sometimes that can be imagery, right? Sometimes it can be your breath. Alternatively, with non-directed like types of meditation, for example, with mindfulness, we're really just noticing what arises in our field of awareness. So noticing the sensations you feel in your body, right? Noticing like the movement of the breath coming in and out, and really just noticing what thoughts come up, right? So like when people tell me like, oh, like after a guided meditation, we'll often reflect with students and just kind of get a sense of what the experience was like. Like, oh man, I messed up because, I noticed that I was thinking about this, the grocery list that I needed to take care of when I go to Kroger later. And then I heard your voice and I came back. The coming back is like is like contracting your muscles, right? If we're going back to like working out in the gym. So noticing when your mind wanders and then coming back to yourself that's the practice. Trying to think of another good way to explain it.
No,
So,
I think that was great. I think that was great
okay.
because I'm honestly really enjoying this conversation myself because I think now I really understand that there's a clear delineation between meditation and mindfulness. So if I'm getting you correctly, meditation is your ability to focus your attention, and
Mhm.
mindfulness is understanding where your attention goes. Or
Yeah, exactly. Mindfulness is a form of meditation,
got
to
you,
be clear.
got you.
But yeah, you're spot on, right? So yeah, I was also going to make like another bit of a metaphor as it relates to mindfulness, because really our minds are kind of biased towards misery, right? Like we, and it might be contributed from just like evolutionary purposes, right? Being protective and looking out for threats, right? But our thinking mind, right? The mind that's going here, there, and everywhere. And in meditation, we refer to this as the monkey mind. Meditation is all about really managing that aspect of yourself, right? Sometimes it can be the self-critic, right? That voice in your head that's like has this completely different version of reality that says that you can or can't do something, for example. And so the practice of mindfulness is, imagine you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching a movie. The movie is the narrative, it's your thinking mind, right? And you watching the movie is you observing your thoughts. You're observing what's going on the screen. And sometimes when you're watching a movie that's really intense, right? You're so in it and you're like, I'm living this, right?
Mhm.
Like this is so real right now. And you'll have to like pull yourself away and be like, oh yeah, right, that's right. We're in a movie theater right now. Okay, because you can get so into it, right?
Mhm.
And so oftentimes if we like think about it, we're so in our heads, right? That we are like living this, we're like so actively involved in the narrative, right? Of our thinking mind, that movie, that so rarely do we pull ourselves away to actually watch and observe.
Hmm.
I don't know. So I mean it it's in training our attention and noticing like what is my mind consumed by.
Mhm.
We're able we're better positioned to really give attention to the things that matter. Like that's what it comes down to for me is like what you pay attention to, what your mind is consumed by, that's your life.
Mhm. So that actually leads me to my next question. In that sort of observation that you can get too deep into your own conscious that you don't actually pull away to enjoy it. That's kind of what I got from that analogy. I think that's a really good analogy as well. You should be motivational speaker. You're pretty good at this. Um, I think one of the things I really want to ask is for someone who's done it for a long time, um, are there periods where you aren't the strongest in that regard? I'm also thinking about the analogy you made about exercise and lifting weights. And for someone who weights trains, what typically can happen is your body can get used to a certain workout to where it doesn't have the same effectiveness as it ordinarily would have had. So you kind of have to switch it up, right? So would
Yeah.
you say that depending on how stressful, and I think this might be like a good opportunity for us to talk through, people who might be going through stressful situations where either a meditation practice isn't something that they will even give a chance because they feel like it won't necessarily have an effect on anything, but also for the people who might be able to do meditation in a smaller space. But then if a situation is, more serious, I think what makes me think about this whole situation is your reference and the connection between meditation and contemplative prayer and Christianity and Buddhism and how all those things are actually forms of meditation. But even in Christianity, I can speak for my faith specifically. Sometimes I was just thinking like prayer is not going to do anything right now. Like meditation, focusing on anything is not going to do anything. I just have to be hyperactive. I have to have my hands in everything, and I'm stressed out, and I actually make it more compounded because of that. So to circle back to the original question, do you find that you ever have to try new practices to strengthen your ability to be in a meditative state? And if so, what's some advice you have for someone who's getting started that it might be an ongoing journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So same with working out, right? Um, a little bit isn't going to be impactful or meaningful, right? So if you go to the gym for an hour, like one day out of the month, like, I mean, that's great, but it's not going to have as much of an impact or really many tangible results, right? So alternatively, a little bit, a lot, right? Like that's flexing that muscle. That's good. But to be super clear, the full benefit, like to get the optimal benefits of meditation for your well-being, there's been a lot of clinical research done on this, especially like within like VA hospitals and other like settings like that. Um, it's 45 minutes a day is really what's required to see the benefits of the practice. And I failed to even get to touch on some of those, right? So I mentioned like the VA hospital, like with chronic pain management, um, PTSD, anxiety, depression, right? Stress. You mentioned that the stress factor, right? And allowing yourself to, I mean, because really it doesn't look like much. Like you're sitting or you're laying down or you're walking, and you know that you're laying down or you're resting or you're walking. That is the practice, but it's an opportunity to reconnect with yourself, to ground yourself to the moment, to the breath, to wherever you are. And that significantly reduces cortisol levels. It helps engage the parasympathetic nervous system that cues your body that it's safe to rest and digest. Like this impacts all aspects of your health in so many different ways. But I could kind of go down a rabbit hole on that. I'm not here to lecture or preach. I think everyone has an idea or some understanding that like this is good for you. But when it comes to like building a practice, I know some of y'all are like 45 minutes a day. Like I ain't got time for that. There are opportunities to build in mindful moments throughout your day. Some of you might have heard or be somewhat familiar with mindful eating practices. That's an example, right? I know I'm guilty of like sitting in front of the TV or scrolling through my phone as I eat, and I'm not really eating, like I'm not really present with like the experience of that. And then even like brushing your teeth in the morning or taking a shower. Like how many people spend time, like, I don't know, like I'm thinking of so many things that I have going on or people that I need to reach out to in the morning when I'm taking a shower. And it's such a vastly different experience of when I'm just taking a shower, right? But aside from that, when it comes to just building a practice, it's about, I would say, I guess I would suggest to build off of routines or habits that you already have in place, right? If you like to drink coffee when you greet the day every morning, that could be an opportunity to build in meditation. And like I said, it's like any exercise, right? So it's not like you're going to sit there for 45 minutes and just be with yourself sitting there and drinking coffee, but you can start at 5 minutes and then build from there. I feel like a lot of people have this idea that like meditation is like sitting cross-legged like on the mountainside. Yeah, exactly. Eyes closed and you're just like super zen, right? That it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can find a sitting posture like that. You can stand, you can lay down. There's walking meditation, and also there's so many different like avenues that you can really start. You can really start with like what feels most comfortable for you, because again, it's all about training attention, and the most accessible way of reconnecting to yourself, to the moment, is through the body, right? So we refer to this as like the anchor, whatever is keeping you grounded to the moment. That can be your breath. For me, it's often my breath, but there's a whole range of physical senses, right? That some people are more visual. So maybe a guided imagery, or maybe focusing on a flickering candlelight. Maybe that's more like accessible if you're a more visual person. Sometimes you can, you know what I mean? Like, or scent, right? Leveraging different ways to come into the moment, there's so many different opportunities. I love essential oil and just like the scent and bringing me to arrive right here. But it can also be the coolness that you feel on your skin, right? The touch. Like there's a lot of different avenues for you to start to really come into presence.
Well, let me ask you this, Rachel, because I think that it might be confusing. I know it kind of is to me because it almost in some circles could make you feel like it's permissive for you to just do anything and call it meditation. Because in my mind, I was like, oh, well, I could just be in the car, or I could be shooting hoops, I could be at a free throw line. But I wanted to know if there are any bare essentials that define what it means to be meditating. So you
Yes.
mentioned a couple of things like there's multiple postures you can be in. You also said that there's multiple things that you can kind of tap into in order to get prepared for the space, whether that's something visual, if you're focusing on a flickering light, or whether it's a smell, or whether it's a sound, or whether it's a heartbeat or a breath. So, what makes meditation, and what are some of those things that need to be checked in order for you to be able to say you're authentically meditating?
Paying attention to the present moment without judgment or attachment, right? So let's backtrack a little bit. Attachment in terms of attaching to a particular outcome, right? You mentioned like throwing free throws, right? And so like if you are attaching judgment to the experience, or if you are anticipating the outcome, like what makes meditation is being in the present moment. Oftentimes we are reflecting on the past or ruminating on the past. Oh, I should have done that, or why didn't I do this? Alternatively, we're very future oriented, right? I hope I make this shot. If I don't make this shot, everyone's going to make fun of me. Whatever. So attachment and judgment play a really, really big role, right? It's being with the moment, and if and when you notice judgment, it's just that. Oh, like we do. I do a mindful eating exercise with raisins, and people are like, "Oh, I don't like raisins." Blah 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 blah. I get it. But when you really like, when you don't have any attachment or judgment about whatever this little thing is in your hand, this foreign object, right? That's like wrinkly. It's like like brownish, but then it has hues of different color. You put it in your mouth and you just notice the sensations that arise with this object being in your mouth. How saliva is generated. Like you're not, oh, I don't like raisins. You're literally just observing the experience for what it is. So, as I said, I tend to ramble a little bit. I could get off track, but it's all about paying attention in the present moment without judgment or attachment.
That's beautiful. I know we have about 5 more minutes before we're going to go into the surprise that we have for everyone. But I did want to kind of compound on what you were just talking about, because I really think it's important that people understand that even if you happen to be in a position where you're in deep thought or contemplative, it doesn't necessarily tie to meditation if you're thinking too much about the past or you're focused too much on the future. So I kind of want to get and dig a little more personally into your story, and maybe if you could just share really quickly a time when meditation helped you through something that might have been perceivably difficult otherwise if you hadn't have learned the practice.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can think of something that has readily come to mind with a confrontation that I had with my boss recently. And, the former version of myself easily gets caught up in my feelings and anticipating other people's feelings around conflict, right? And so I noticed, I mean, this was a tough conversation that needed to be had. And in anticipation of it, I'm about to go into his office and I sit in my seat and I just feel my feet grounded in the floor beneath me. And I notice that my heart is racing. And I'm like, my palms are a little sweaty. And to myself, I recognize like I'm anxious. I feel it in my chest. It's tight, right? Like I like the moisture on my hands, and just that in and of itself, just acknowledging and being aware, like, oh, I'm feeling this way, and then pausing. Like I think that's what's really helped me particularly is that I can get so tongue tied and caught up in my words and in my feelings that I now in having the conversation with him and he shared something that um was upsetting to me, but with the practice I'm able to be a little bit more responsive as opposed to being reactive, right? So you say something I don't like, well, there's an immediate gut reaction and I want to lash out. But with my meditation practice, there's a little bit more of a pause where I notice and I feel that reaction. Like I feel angry or upset or whatever, but I don't act upon that. I allow myself the space and the time to just really be with it and then be mindful around what my response is. So it's equipped me to have tough conversations at work and also personally. But again, it's so hard to carry that with you all the time.
Right.
And I don't have a everyday practice because I'm human. I'm not a monk, but there are moments where like I reflect back and be like, wow, I'm so grateful for just that pause. And so I guess with that said, I'm more than happy to really share a guided meditation for you all. So it will take maybe about 15 minutes or so. Um, and so if you are, hopefully you're not in the car, but wherever you might be, just take a moment here to make yourself comfortable. And that can be whatever posture really suits you, where you can be kind of relaxed, but also maintain a focused kind of concentration. This is the beginning of the year. I know for myself, I'm really focused on, what I can do to better myself, right? All those resolutions. And also, a lot is going on in our world. I'm losing track of how long COVID has been impacting our daily lives. I know that you're working, caretaking, you're learning, you're growing, and really we're living in a culture so heavily influenced by social media likes and Yelp reviews that We're finding ourselves striving to this level of perfection that we might believe everyone else is achieving, whether that be at work or other aspects of our lives. So we may think we're alone in this struggle to keep up, but this is universal. We all question whether we're able to make the cut in one way or another. So in this meditation today, we'll be practicing taming that inner critic by recognizing that we're all just human and each with our own insecurities and imperfections. So we'll be exploring a brief compassionate practice this evening. So as I said, you might want to take some pressure off the body by finding a laying down position where you feel alert but also relaxed. And if you choose to lie down, you may bend your knees and place the bottoms of your feet onto the ground, wide apart so that your knees collapse into each other. Or you can stretch your legs out long and wide. Your arms may be resting out at your sides or on your belly, your chest, wherever is most natural for you. Of course, if you'd rather stay seated, that's totally your call, but take a moment here to really settle into the awareness of your body, whatever posture that it might be in. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can do that now. If you rather not, just keep a soft gaze. So find your anchor, that place in your body where you feel a sense of ease. Maybe that's the heaviness of your back body against the floor or the couch. Maybe it's the breath, right? The sensations of the breath moving in and out of your body. Rush of air coming in through your nose, filling up your belly and releasing. This anchor that I speak to, it can be found by feeling the stillness, density, the solidity of your body resting. So notice the contact points of where your body meets the earth, allowing yourself to get heavier and heavier. Allowing yourself to be cradled, to be cared for by the earth beneath you. The anchor can also be found by noticing the expansion and contraction of your breath, breathing in and out. So take a moment here, follow the sensations of the body breathing, not changing it in any way, but just following the waves of the breath, feeling the weight of the body, the rhythm of the breath, quieting your nervous system, knowing that you are safe, feeling nourished, feeling cared for. And now begin turning towards what's happening right now. Not the experience that you believe that you should be having, but what is truly present with you right now in this moment. Opening to different sensations in the body and staying mindful for the arising of any thoughts, images, emotions. Is there any particular sensation that is strong or clamoring for attention? Maybe there's a familiar ache or discomfort. Maybe you don't notice anything at all. But if so, can you bring more awareness to your experience? See if you can bring some curiosity to it. You can even ask yourself, what's happening in my body right now? What is happening in my mind right now? How much is your present moment in response to external pressures? How much is influenced by the outside world? When you peel back a facade of perfection, you may realize that most people are struggling in life with the same things that you're struggling with. As you consider this, allow someone or a series of people come to mind. They could be someone you hold dearly, they could be an acquaintance or someone you don't know at all, right? But just allow yourself to collect an image of someone, visualizing their face or even cultivating the feeling of their presence if you're having trouble actually drawing an image in your mind's eye. This can be a dear friend, a work colleague, a neighbor that you pass by on your morning walk. What would it be like getting through the world knowing that, just like me, they're also working with fear, anxiety, and stress in their lives? Just like me, this person feels a desire to measure up and sometimes feels overwhelmed by their own shortcomings. Just like me, they know what it's like to be stumped, to be frustrated and limited with what they're able to do. And just like me, they want to be happy and they deserve compassion and kindness. Take some time to let yourself rest with this sense of connection. Bringing a hand to your heart or your belly, reconnecting with yourself and touching back into your anchor whenever you need to, whenever you drift away. This is where you come back. And as you begin to recognize the suffering of another, there might be a feeling of caring that arises. This could be opening up a part of you that has been closed off. But just take a few moments to see if you notice a sense of caring or warmth. Just like me, this person struggles with being human. Just like me, this person longs to be loved and accepted and to feel safe. If you forget what you're doing or get disconnected, just come back to your anchor. Gently bring your attention back to the stillness of the body, the movement of the breath. You don't need to choose or reject any experience, but just notice what's most prominent for you for a few moments. This practice of remembering our humanity and the humanity of others is so important as we get caught up in the delusion of perfection. It's a powerful reminder that being human is being slightly messy, is being perfectly imperfect. And so when you catch yourself comparing yourself to others, you can repeat this simple phrase, just like me, reminding yourself that you are not alone. When you're ready, begin to deepen your breath. Maybe bring a soft smile to the face, remembering that you're only human, just like everyone else, just like me. And begin to slowly open your eyes and reorient yourself to your surroundings, to your space. Maybe if you're lying down, you stretch your arms up overhead. I hope this practice of remembering that you are not alone in anxiety and stress will be a benefit to you as you move through the rest of your week, the rest of this month, and giving yourself grace. So that concludes this evening's guided meditation around compassion. Thank you all for spending this time with us.
Oof. Wow. I wish you could hear applause. I wish you really could, because that was a really unique experience, and I'm so glad that you were here. I'm glad that I was able to share that space, and I'm sure I can speak for everyone else that we say we really appreciate you not only sharing your experiences with us, but also your talent. Because I kind of got into a whole little zen myself. I was over here like, shoot, I'm just human like everybody else. So
I like it.
all seriousness,
Good.
I really appreciate you. And there have been a few people. Unfortunately, we can't answer all of the questions, but there have been a few people to ask some questions. So I want to ask a few of those. And if you could just try to limit the response to about a minute, so maybe we can get a few more in.
Okay,
So
I'll
the
try.
first question we have is: are you opposed to a person starting with a book, YouTube channel, or some of the apps like Headspace or Calm when they're trying to meditate?
Of course not. No, those
Mhm.
are there's so many wonderful resources out there. Um, as mentioned with the different apps, right? There's so many different podcasts and books and teachers. I fully encourage you to learn more about the practice as you see how you can connect with it, right? And guided meditations, even the brief ones within the Headspace Calm. I know another one is Insight as well. Are all great tools to develop a practice.
Thank you for that. Second question we have is, this is for you, Rachel. How does Rachel spend those 45 minutes a day she recommended? Is it all at once, or is it typically broken up throughout the day?
Ideally, all at once. Ideally, all at once. I recognize that that's not always feasible, especially given certain lifestyles, right? Like if you're a parent with a young child, like I recognize that that's not always accessible. But that's really what we're all working towards, right? But as I mentioned earlier, any mindful moments that you can integrate in your day, right? Like that are practical that you can implement in your daily routines. Those are also really great opportunities to pay more attention. I mean, something that one of my favorite mindfulness teachers has said about mindfulness meditation is that it's like a love affair with life, right? Being curious, paying attention to all of the miracles that we're surrounded by every day. I feel like that was more than a minute, so I'm gonna shut up and let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving.
No, I wasn't going to stop you doing your thing. For this last question, this is referring to the portion of the conversation where you talked about mindful eating. I think is when you're talking about the raisins. I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with raisins, just as long as they don't go on potato salad. But that's just my
Ugh.
right. There's some people who think that's okay. Okay, so this individual said, "Hey, Rachel, will you please elaborate on mindful eating? This is the first time I'm hearing of it, but it sounds like it could aid me in a healthier diet, which ultimately could lead to some weight loss so I can shed a few pounds." Ha, smiley face. So I did think that was super interesting how you talked about um, being able to take the judgment out of the food. So yeah, I actually love for you to elaborate on that too. So elaborate on mindful eating.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really about being awake in your senses, right? Attending to the experience of eating. And I know that sounds like, okay, like I'm eating, I know I'm eating. Do you though? Because oftentimes, especially if you're sitting in front of the TV or your phone, you're literally just like shoveling it in, right? And so, I mean, it happens, right?
I feel seen. I feel like talking about me, Rachel, because I feel like you see
No,
me eat, and I don't tell anybody.
it's
I
not.
got a
Listen,
Chick-fil-A sandwich right here. Yeah, see, now I don't want to eat
Jovan,
anymore.
just like me, man, just like me. You're not alone. You're not alone in that. But um, with that, we're not, when you're not really curious to the actual sensation of eating, right? So, I mean, with the raisin exercise, I break it down in terms of looking at your food, right? Start by really taking it in, seeing it as it is, noticing the colors, right? Any like ridges or edges, all of that stuff. And then the textures, right? Like picking up the sandwich and just feeling it, the softness, right? Whatever. I know like this is so ridiculous, but hear me out. The reason why a lot of folks have leveraged this practice for weight loss, because when you really recognize the taste, the feeling of the food that you eat, when you take a moment to eat, put the sandwich down, chew it and notice the experience of chewing, the taste that arises, the textures in your mouth. You're taking the time to eat. Really, you end up, I mean, it's what they say, right? I'm not an intuitive eating specialist by any means, but you are more readily equipped to notice when you're full or whether you're hungry or not. So that's how it contributes to weight loss. But also it forces a pause to slow down and to really be in the moment and the experience that you have. So with the raisin exercise, and I'll wrap up here in a minute because I know that we're getting down on time, but it's really as simple as starting with holding a raisin in your hand, focusing on it like you've never seen it before, right? Mindfulness is all about having this beginner's mind, like remaining really curious. And so with that, you're scanning it, you're turning it around, you're noticing the edges, what it looks like, the shape, and then you really dive into the sensation of touch. You're taking time to explore the texture of the object, the size of it, feeling the softness, the hardness, whatever that might be. And then from there, smelling it. Smelling your food, taking in the aroma, attending to the fragrance, right? What does it smell like? I mean, it's really broken down. We even take a moment to hear, right? And people always kind of giggle at this part where I cue them to place it near their ear, the object, and squeeze it, roll it around, notice any sounds coming from it or around it, right? And then finally taste, putting it in your mouth, not chewing, but just noticing, how your hand knows exactly where to go. And then placing it in your mouth, your tongue, being aware of your mouth as it waters, the coolness, right? Like all of the feelings, everything that you experience before you actually eat it. So that's kind of a recap of like what the raisin exercise looks like. And the idea is when we eat mindfully, I mean, one, the experience is enhanced, right? Or not, depending on what you're eating, if you like it or not. But also you take time to slow down, and that's kind of where we get into how it can impact a healthier diet.
Well, thank you, Rachel. That was our last question. Thank you so much again for being a wonderful presenter, very intuitive, super helpful, and a lot of information was shared. I want to thank everyone who's actually on the call for taking the time to spend some time with us. Hope you guys will join us again. Just to reiterate, this is the Young Alumni Council. And if you're interested in joining, we'll also be having an event next month. I believe it's going to be on February 16th. And that's going to be talking about dating and relationships. But continue to find out what we're doing. You can follow us on social media. Instagram page is GSU_YAC. We will follow back. But if you are interested in joining the Young Alumni Council, this is a super, I'd say, close-knit group. We don't need a whole lot of people, but we also know that there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done in the community. And one of the things that we want to have is young professionals like yourself who are committed to not just Georgia State University as an alum, but also the surrounding communities. And we want to be able to have these kind of conversations that can really not just move our generation forward, but the world forward. So we want to thank you so much again. And we'll see you next time. All right. You guys be safe. Have a great week.